Remember?
How about when you cut his throat? Were you crying then?
I don't know.
Travis Alexander was found dead in his own shower, stabbed 27 times, shot in the face, throat slashed so deeply he was nearly decapitated. He had been lying there for 5 days before anyone found him. His ex-girlfriend Jodi Arias had one explanation, then another, then another. But police had already found something she thought she had destroyed forever. Deleted photos taken inside that house on the last day Travis Alexander was alive. What those images showed changed everything. Welcome to Dark Verdict. Today we uncover the full story of Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander. Subscribe and let us know where you are watching from. Now let us get into it. To understand how this happened, you need to understand who Travis Alexander really was. July 28, 1977. In Riverside County, California, Travis Victor Alexander was born into a life that would be marked by hardship long before success ever found him. The image many people would later remember was of a confident, polished, and highly motivated young man. But the road that shaped him was far more difficult than most outsiders ever realized. Travis grew up in an unstable environment. His early years were affected by family struggles, financial hardship, and addiction within the household. Those close to the story would later describe a childhood where consistency was rare and security was never guaranteed. For many people, those kinds of beginnings become permanent limitations. For Travis Alexander, they became fuel. As he grew older, he became determined to build a life that looked nothing like the one he came from. He wanted structure. He wanted success. He wanted stability. And above all, he wanted control over his future. By adulthood, Travis had developed a reputation for charisma and relentless ambition. He was outgoing, articulate, and driven. He understood how to connect with people quickly. In social settings, he often stood out. He could be humorous one moment, serious the next, and persuasive when he needed to be. Many people found him magnetic. Eventually, Travis settled in Mesa, Arizona, a fast-growing city east of Phoenix. There he became involved with prepaid legal services, a company where salesmanship, confidence, and motivation were rewarded. For Travis, it was more than employment. It was an opportunity to reinvent himself. He threw himself into the work. He attended conferences, networked constantly, and embraced the culture of personal growth and financial success that surrounded the business. He wanted more than an ordinary life, and he worked as though he believed he could will success into existence. Travis was also deeply connected to his faith. He was active within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Religion gave him community, discipline, and identity. He spoke openly about morality, goals, relationships, and marriage. To many people around him, Travis represented resilience, a man who had come from difficulty and was now building something better. He was social, ambitious, physically active, and future-oriented. But beneath that polished exterior, life was not as simple as it seemed. He wanted commitment and stability, yet his romantic life was often complicated. He projected confidence, but those close to him sometimes saw stress, pressure, and emotional conflict beneath the surface. He was the kind of person people expected to hear from regularly. Which is why when communication from Travis suddenly stopped in June of 2008, those around him noticed quickly.
Family dinners, and we would always ask him about his, how's his love life, who's he dating, and...
By then, Travis was 30 years old. He had a home in Mesa, professional momentum, and people who cared about him. From the outside, he looked like a man moving upward, someone who had outrun the chaos of his early life and transformed himself into something better. But there was another side to his story, one that involved a relationship marked by intensity, attraction, distance, and growing instability. A relationship that would eventually place him at the center of one of America's most notorious murder cases.
Travis Alexander, and I want to remind everybody, Travis Alexander is the victim, and now he's being victimized again.
Because before Travis Alexander became a headline, he became involved with someone who would change the course of his life forever. Her name was Jodi Arias. July 9, 1980. In Salinas, California, Jodi Ann Arias was born years before her name would become known across America. Long before courtrooms, headlines, and national attention, she was simply another young woman growing up in Central California, living a life that at first seemed ordinary from the outside. Those who knew Jodi during different stages of her life often described her in conflicting ways.
And he told me that before. He said, I love her, I care about her, but I can't marry her.
Some remembered her as polite, soft-spoken, and friendly. Others described someone more guarded, difficult to read, and capable of presenting very different versions of herself depending on who was watching. That contrast would later become one of the most discussed aspects of her personality. As she entered adulthood, Jodi worked regular jobs including restaurant and service industry positions. She had an interest in photography and often used cameras to document moments in her life. Beneath the surface, those who later reflected on her personality often described a deeper need for connection, validation, and emotional security. Relationships appeared to matter greatly to her. Approval seemed important. Rejection, according to later accounts, could affect her strongly. That does not make someone dangerous, but in true crime stories, personality traits that seem minor in one chapter can become defining in another. By the mid-2000s, Jodi was living in California. She was attractive, socially capable, and able to make positive first impressions. She could appear warm and approachable. She knew how to engage with people and create comfort quickly. That ability would matter when she met Travis Alexander. September 2006, Las Vegas, Nevada. At a prepaid legal services conference, hundreds of attendees gathered for networking, motivation, and opportunity. Travis was comfortable in those rooms. He knew how to speak, how to persuade, and how to leave a lasting impression. For Jodi, it was a new environment filled with ambitious strangers and charismatic personalities. The kind of setting where identities could be reshaped quickly. Somewhere inside that atmosphere, Jodi and Travis met. There was immediate chemistry, at least on the surface. Travis was confident, articulate, and socially magnetic. Jodi was attractive, attentive, and capable of creating warmth quickly. It looked like the beginning of an ordinary relationship, but ordinary relationships do not become national headlines. After meeting in Las Vegas, communication between them continued. Calls, messages, and growing emotional contact followed. What began as conference chemistry quickly developed into something more serious. They lived in different states, Travis in Arizona and Jodi in California, but distance did not slow the connection. If anything, it intensified it. Travis was drawn to Jodi's attention and affection. Jodi was drawn to Travis's confidence, direction, and strong sense of identity. Each seemed to provide something the other lacked. By late 2006 and into 2007, the relationship was moving quickly. They traveled to see each other across state lines. One of the most significant developments during this period was Jodi's growing interest in Travis's faith. She reportedly became involved with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and was later baptized. To some observers, it looked like sincere spiritual commitment. To others, it appeared deeply connected to her desire to align herself with Travis and the world he lived in. She was not merely dating him. She seemed to be moving toward his world entirely. But even in those early months, the relationship did not fit neatly into a simple category. Travis's religious beliefs and desire for a stable future sometimes clashed with the reality of a fast-moving, emotionally intense romance. Jodi appeared increasingly invested while Travis seemed uncertain. There was attraction but also tension, passion but also uncertainty. What began in Las Vegas as possibility was slowly becoming something harder to define. Early 2007, the relationship was becoming unstable. Travis spoke openly about marriage and family, yet continued interacting socially with other women. He appeared uncertain whether Jodi was the person he wanted to build a life with. Jodi seemed less willing to accept ambiguity. That mismatch can quietly poison a relationship. One person sees possibility, the other sees hesitation. Over time, resentment grows on both sides, without either person fully acknowledging what is happening. Trust was beginning to erode. Jealousy became a recurring issue. Travis reportedly confided in friends that Jodi was emotionally intense and increasingly hard to separate from. Others said he struggled to fully let go himself. While Travis sometimes seemed ready to move on, he also continued allowing Jodi back into his life. Communication did not end cleanly. Boundaries did not become firm. The relationship never fully closed even when it was clearly damaged. On June 29, 2007, the relationship was reportedly ended, but in reality, very little ended at all. They continued talking. Intimacy and emotional involvement continued long after the formal breakup. This is often where toxic relationships become most dangerous, not when two people are fully together, but when they are half together and half apart. There is no clarity, no closure, no trust, no peace. Only the slow accumulation of unresolved tension, pulling both people toward something neither can predict. As 2007 continued, Travis was trying to progress in life while still tied to a relationship he no longer trusted. Jodi was still emotionally connected to a man who appeared unwilling to fully commit. People close to Travis described growing concern. He appeared to be trying to move on while still allowing contact to continue. That hesitation may have mattered more than he ever realized. Meanwhile, Jodi had relocated to Mesa, Arizona, to be closer to Travis. To those who knew the situation, it was another signal of how deeply invested she remained even after the official end of the relationship. The proximity only made the already complicated dynamic harder to manage. And on June 4, 2000, an 8-something final happened inside a house in Mesa that would bring everything to a devastating and irreversible end. Near the bathroom sink, investigators found a digital camera that had been damaged and placed inside the washing machine. It appeared someone had tried to destroy it, but they had not succeeded. Inside the memory card were deleted photographs. Some showed Travis alive on the day of his death. Others showed a woman police already knew by name, Jodi Arias. The timestamps placed her in the house on the day Travis was murdered. What began as a welfare check had just become a homicide investigation. And the woman who said she was nowhere near Arizona was now at the center of it all. The damaged camera was sent for forensic analysis. Deleted does not always mean gone. Technicians recovered the memory card's files. What they found was staggering. The photos began innocently. Images of Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias together inside the home on June 4, 2008. They appeared relaxed, comfortable, normal. Then the sequence changed. There were intimate photographs of the two together, timestamped only hours before Travis's death. This confirmed something critical. Jodi had lied. She told others she was nowhere near Mesa that day, yet the camera placed her inside Travis's bedroom without any doubt. Then came the final images. Several blurry accidental photos appeared to show the bathroom floor, a ceiling corner, and part of a body near the shower. Investigators believed these were captured during or immediately after the attack when the camera was dropped in the chaos. The timestamps created a devastating timeline. 5:29 in the afternoon, Travis alive. 5:32 in the afternoon, chaotic blurred images. Minutes later, he was dead. The killer had not just left evidence behind. They had accidentally documented the final moments of Travis Alexander's life. Police now focused fully on Jodi Arias, but she was gone. She had already driven hundreds of miles away, continuing life as if nothing had happened, smiling, socializing, meeting a new man in another state, while Travis Alexander lay in his shower. Detectives had enough to bring her in for questioning, and soon Jodi would tell a story, then another, because when facts corner a liar, the truth becomes harder and harder to control. When detectives first turned their attention to Jodi Arias, they expected denial. What they did not expect was how many different denials they would hear.
You know, if I did that,
I'd be fully ready to face the consequences.
At first, Jodi sounded calm, helpful, even sympathetic. She told investigators she had not seen Travis in months. She said she was nowhere near Mesa on the day he died. But detectives already had the photographs. They already had the timestamps. They already knew she was lying, so they pressed harder. That is when her story changed. Now Jodi admitted she had gone to Travis's house but claimed she left him alive. She said masked intruders entered the home after she arrived. 2 unknown attackers killed Travis, threatened her, and spared her life. There was no evidence of intruders, no forced entry, no witnesses, no fingerprints from strangers, no sign anyone else had been there. Again, detectives confronted her. Again, the story shifted. Now Jodi claimed Travis attacked her first.
He went like that, and he turned his head and grabbed my waist.
Just like that, correct?
Pretty much.
She said she killed him in self-defense. 3 versions. She was never there. Intruders killed him. She killed him to save herself. Each new story emerged only after police disproved the one before it. To investigators, it was not confusion. It was adaptation, and every change damaged her credibility further. Records showed Jodi had rented a car before the trip. The mileage was suspicious. Gas cans had been purchased. Friends reported unusual behavior before and after the murder. This was beginning to look less like panic and more like planning. But Jodi remained composed, soft-spoken, sometimes smiling, as if she believed she could still talk her way out of everything. What she did not realize was that prosecutors were building something stronger than a confession. They were building a timeline. Days before the killing, Jodi rented a car and put thousands of miles on it in a short period. Prosecutors argued she wanted transportation that could not easily be tied to her own vehicle. The gas cans reduced the need to stop at stations where receipts or cameras might track her route. She changed plans about where she was going. On paper, she was traveling west. In reality, prosecutors said she made a deliberate detour to Mesa where Travis lived. Then another detail surfaced. A .25 caliber handgun had reportedly gone missing from the home of Jodi's grandparents not long before Travis was killed by a gunshot from a .25 caliber weapon. Prosecutors pointed to this as deeply suspicious, though no recovered weapon definitively tied the gun to the crime. To the prosecution, this was not chaos. It was logistics, a route, a destination, a target. And on June 4, 2000, an 8 Travis Alexander opened the door to someone he knew. Jodi Arias could change her story, but the crime scene could not. Inside Travis Alexander's bathroom, detectives documented one of the most violent homicide scenes they had ever encountered. Blood-covered surfaces pooled on the floor and marked the path of a prolonged and desperate struggle. Mixed in the blood evidence was DNA linked to both Travis and Jodi Arias. A bloody palm print later identified as Jodi's was recovered in the hallway outside the bathroom. It suggested movement through the home after the violence had already begun. She was not trapped in one sudden act of self-defense. She was moving through the scene, cleaning, leaving, surviving. Travis had defensive wounds on his hands consistent with trying to protect himself. Medical examiners documented multiple stab wounds.
Severity of the wound and the depth of the wound severed the trachea.
A gunshot wound to the head, a severe slash across the throat, and additional trauma across the body. The order of those injuries became a major courtroom battle.
You also said you do not see a cold-blooded murder. Again, is that going to be technique?
Yes, it is.
But one conclusion remained constant. This was an extraordinarily violent killing. And Jodi's own injuries were minimal compared with the catastrophic damage inflicted on Travis, something prosecutors would emphasize repeatedly when challenging her self-defense claim. Every drop of blood, every print, every wound, the physical evidence told a story that was harder to manipulate than words, and soon that story would be presented to a jury and to the entire watching world. 2013, Maricopa County Superior Court, Arizona. By the time the trial began, the case was no longer just about a murder in Mesa. It had become a national spectacle. The courtroom filled with reporters, sketch artists, and spectators every day. The entire country followed through live coverage and constant commentary. At the center of it all sat Jodi Arias, calm, composed, often staring forward with minimal expression. The state's case was direct. Jodi traveled hundreds of miles to see Travis. She entered a home where she was not expected. She killed him in a brutal, sustained attack and attempted to erase all evidence before leaving. The defense argued that Travis was not the man people believed him to be. They described a relationship marked by emotional volatility, manipulation, and alleged abuse. According to the defense, Jodi was not a calculating killer, but someone pushed beyond her limits who snapped under extreme pressure. Their argument centered on one word: self-defense. Jodi took the stand for days. She spoke softly at times, then firmly at others. She described fear, emotional turmoil, and a relationship she claimed became genuinely dangerous. She admitted to killing Travis, but insisted it was entirely unplanned.
And he ran, chasing me, and I turned around and pointed it at him.
Prosecutors pressed her relentlessly on timelines, on her changing stories, and on why physical evidence consistently contradicted her version of events. Each explanation shifted slightly. Each answer became another point of debate. Outside the courtroom, the public split sharply. Some believed her emotional testimony. Others saw manipulation being performed in real time. But the jury had to decide something more concrete. Was this murder or self-defense? And if it was murder, was it premeditated? Those questions carried the entire weight of the trial. After months of testimony and thousands of pages of evidence, the jury deliberated. They reviewed the camera images placing Jodi inside Travis's home on the day of his death. The 3 separate stories she told investigators. The forensic evidence linking her directly to the crime scene. The extraordinary brutality of the attack. And the timeline showing a narrow, violent window in which Travis Alexander was killed. Then the jury returned. The courtroom stood. Jodi Arias sat quietly, hands folded. The verdict was read. Guilty of first-degree murder. Gasps, tears, and visible relief from members of Travis Alexander's family moved through the courtroom. But the trial was not over. In Arizona, first-degree murder carries 2 possible outcomes: life in prison or the death penalty. A separate penalty phase would determine which.
The offense was committed with at least 2 deadly weapons, a gun, and at least 1 knife.
During the penalty phase, the defense pleaded for mercy, emphasizing trauma and emotional distress. The prosecution focused on the severity of the attack, arguing it was deliberate, sustained, and executed with clear intent. After further proceedings, the jury could not reach unanimous agreement on the death penalty. That single deadlock changed the outcome. Instead of execution, Jodi Arias was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Travis Alexander's family expressed disappointment, but also a measure of closure. The legal system had spoken, even if not in the way some had hoped. Jodi Arias was led away from the courtroom. A case that began with silence in a house in Mesa had ended with a verdict in a courtroom that had watched every painful detail. After the sentencing, the case did not fade. It stayed alive in news cycles, documentaries, podcasts, and public debate for years. For investigators and legal analysts, it became a reference point, a study in how ordinary relationships can hide extraordinary danger, a digital trail that exposed private reality when someone tried to destroy it, a defendant whose stories adapted under pressure, and forensic evidence that held firm when words could not. In prison, Jodi Arias continued serving her sentence of life without parole. For Travis Alexander's family, the aftermath was quieter but no less heavy. They had answers, but answers do not replace presence. His loss remained fixed in time. June 2008, while everything after became life without him. The case left a lasting imprint on how people think about modern relationships, obsession, and the digital footprints we leave behind without realizing it. The camera that once captured private moments became the very thing that destroyed the lie. How technology can preserve truth even when someone is certain they have erased it forever. Beneath all the analysis, one fact never changed. A man was killed in his own home by someone he knew, and every layer of the investigation pointed back to a single, irreversible act of violence. Years later, the case is still revisited not because the verdict is uncertain, but because the story forces uncomfortable questions about trust, obsession, and how ordinary connections can unravel into something no one involved could have imagined at the start. And in the end, what remains is not just a trial record. It is a warning written in evidence. This is Dark Verdict. If this case disturbed you or made you think, subscribe for more true stories that reveal what is often hidden beneath the surface. Leave a comment below. Where are you watching from, and what part of this case stayed with you the most?